So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and people can come in as they finish up the other sessions. I want this to be a little bit more informal and a little interactive because I want to know a little bit about you guys, who you are, and if you could go into the chat and introduce yourself, let us know your name, what you do, and share a little bit of fun facts or something that you love to do, or something, maybe a hobby that you do, or something maybe you picked up through the the pandemic. What's something fun you learned? Did you learn how to bake bread? Did you learn how to garden? I don't know, we all had a lot of time. So share a little bit about yourself in the chat, because I want to know who's watching, who's out there, and let's learn a little bit about each other as well. So drop your name in the chat, what you do, a little bit about yourself. And while you guys do that, I want to take the time to introduce myself, Natasha Kalis from EvergreenCLE. I'll start at the beginning before I really share too much about the company itself. Initially, I started my career in wealth management. I spent 13 years doing private wealth management, investment management, and financial planning. Kind of a 180 into entrepreneurship in the tech world. I'm a non-tech founder, so really getting my idea off the ground was about surrounding myself with people that were smarter than me, that had skills, had knowledge that was beyond what I could do on my own. And so that's what I want to talk about, is that, you can have an idea and you don't have to know and have all of the answers if you surround yourself with the right people. Last summer was one of my favorite summers ever. My little daughter, Claire, she was 3 years old and finally old enough to help me in our garden. I've always been a gardener. I've always had my hands in the dirt, participated in multiple community gardens. And this last year we had a plot in our own yard. My daughter was able to help. She planted seeds, pulled weeds, had so much fun, and at the end of the year was finally able to harvest that tomato that we had spent all year growing. And the look in her eyes when she took that first bite was just breathtaking. Her eyes widened, smile as ear to ear, and I really don't know if there's anything better than that taste of a homegrown tomato. There's nothing better than that taste. And seeing her eyes light up and seeing that magical moment made me want to continue our garden experience through the whole year. I didn't want that to end. So I started experimenting with indoor gardening and indoor growing, specifically hydroponic, and in my garage. And I quickly found that it's not as easy as the outdoor growing. The sun doesn't rise to give you some light. There isn't nutrients already there, and it doesn't rain if you forget to water your garden. So long story short, I killed a lot of plants in my garage and had to figure out a better way. As a busy working mom, I said, I need to just automate this. I mean, I can answer my doorbell with my phone. I can change my thermostat with my phone. I should be able to automate my garden with my phone. So I went online to order what I thought would have already been in existence, an automated gardening system. And I did a lot of searching, and there was really just nothing available for a consumer to be able to set something up in their home. So I said, well, I need to build this because I want this for myself. So as I started to figure out what that looks like, I decided, well, I need to learn how to code. So I searched Learn to Code in Cleveland and was connected up with Kevin at Flux Makerspace, who is teaching people how to be technologists in their own companies. So I hooked up with Kevin, and he really liked my idea and ended up being part of my team. So he's the lead technologist on my team. As we started working together, we started building out the team even more. We needed front-end developers, we needed some back-end developers, and we needed some hardware technicians just to get that technology piece off the ground. So we started just talking to people in the community, seeing who had interests aligned with our project, but also had skills that were different than what we already had. So finding people that aligned with our mission, but also had a diverse skill set, because although we all want to do it all, there's no way, and just time-wise to do it all. So I tried to focus on the things that I was good at and to find people that were smarter than me in other areas to surround myself. I'm also not a horticulturist. Hobby gardeners have, knowledge based on their own experiences. So I knew that if this was going to be a product that I got off the ground and gave to other people, I needed to have expert advice in the horticulture space. I had followed Leslie Halsack in her podcasts, her blogs, and I've read a couple of her books. So I really admired her as a horticulturist. And I just emailed her and said, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time? And reached out to her, told her what we were working on. She did do consulting for businesses, but it was really out of my price range. So I shared my story. She gave me a little bit of advice. And then after our conversation, she said, I will help you and I'll give you a discounted rate because I really like what you're doing. So she ended up helping us develop our data points, took the information that I had already had and beefed it up, gave me validation in some things, corrected some other things, and helped build the backbone of what are now our plant profiles or our plant recipes, the ideal growing conditions for those plants. So I worked hand in hand with experts that knew so much more than me because I realized that collaboration is so important and that I can only learn so fast and I can only do so much in a day that I'm going to focus on the things that I'm good at. And I'm good at talking to people, getting the word out, connecting with people in the community, and finding like-minded individuals to all come together for a cause. So that's what I focused on. I focused on community development and outreach while my team has focused on the technology creation. And I've also focused on learning that as we've been building it out. So it has been a really long, wonderful process, but the point is I could never have done it alone. And at the end of this year, we should be launching, we will be launching at the Cleveland Public Library. You will see our very first proof of concept, which will be a 9-foot growing sphere that will illustrate all of our technology, and you'll be able to actually come and see all the things we've been working on throughout this, throughout the pandemic. So more coming soon. You'll actually be able to see the technology, but this talk is more about the team and the people that are in my life that made it happen, that I could have never done this alone. Professionally and even personally, I would never have been able to grow this company, feed my family, stay sane without the support of my family at home. So surrounding myself with supportive people at home was really important too, to be able to balance all of life's challenges. I have a really great support system with my husband. He's an equal partner in all aspects of our life. I also have a fantastic mother who helps, and mother-in-law, very active in helping just keep life going on. So I'm never doing anything alone. I always get, how do you do it as a working mom? And I don't do it alone. I'm never alone. And it's really important to be collaborative and to ask for help and to realize that it's actually refreshing to have smarter people in the room. Not being the smartest person in the room is actually a really, really good thing. It means that you've built a team that is amazing and can do big, bad things. So that's just a little bit about myself and a little bit about what the talk is. I'm going to share who we have in the room. We've got Polly, who works in virtual reality. Hi there. And my spirit animal is what is that? I don't know how to say that. Kiwaka. I don't know how to say that. We have Hannah, who is a student, likes to bake. And Sonia, also a kuka. Is that how you say it? I don't know. Okay. Sonia, a student who loves playing jazz piano. So awesome. That is really, really cool. So after sharing a little bit about myself, is there any questions about building a team or working in a collaborative environment or outreaching to people that you don't know? feel free to pop in the chat or request access at the top there. And I see there's more people in here, so feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I'd love to see who is watching. It says there are 14 eyeballs in the room, and only a couple of you have introduced yourself, so please don't be shy. What was the hardest thing for you in finding and building our team? So one of the hardest things about building and the team was retaining. We actually had two different people come through the team that were hardware specialists and ended up not sticking with the team. So it's really difficult when you're a startup and you don't have a huge amount of funding, bootstrap startup. So budgets are a little bit tight, so we can't hire anybody full-time. It's all contract work right now. So the hardest thing sometimes in building a team is to find people that are willing to help you out on hourly amounts or, you know, discounted rates. That can be the most difficult thing when you don't have the ability to offer full-time salaries or benefits or bonuses, things like that. It's really difficult when you're a bootstrap company to find that. So for us, sometimes retaining that one piece has been a little bit difficult in finding the right people, because it's also an electrical component. So not everybody is really interested in messing with electrical hardware. So to find the right person that's interested in what we're doing and then that will also work on a contract basis has been a little bit difficult, but we have that figured out. And I also started learning that myself, because as a business owner, if you find that you can't get something done, you have to just learn it and do it yourself. Thank you, Sonia. And we have Shifra, a case student and swimmer. Okay, awesome. So is anybody in the group other than Polly working on an idea or project or anything fun and exciting? What is your best piece of advice in finding people with like-minded interests? So I found that finding people that are like-minded is I went to a lot of different events when we could go in person. I'm a people person, very social, and I would go to different entrepreneurship and networking events so that I could start to meet other entrepreneurs in the area to find support, because I found that other business owners tend to be really supportive of each other. So I went out and just started meeting as many people as possible and talking to as many people as possible, and connecting with people in real life. During the pandemic, that became a little different. It had to go virtual, and you had to be more strategic and personally invite people into a Zoom room or into a phone call to connect with them. So when we shifted to the virtual environment, I had to figure out and be more strategic rather than just showing up at events and meeting people and hoping to find like a serendipitous connection. I had to start thinking, what kind of strategic partnerships do I want to make in the community, and who do I want on my team, and where do I find them? And like just reached out to people inside of, so our project, what we wanted to do was align with our community and align with the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. So I started looking up on their website, Cuyahoga County and City of Cleveland sustainability departments. And I just started calling those people to see if there was any kind of alignment there, and sending emails requesting a chat or a phone call and looking up different people in similar spaces. So I reached out to different indoor gardens, like hydroponic gardens in the area, to talk to those business owners and tell them what we were doing and learn about what they were doing and seeing if I could assist them. So sometimes when you find like-minded individuals, it's about how you can help them. So I would reach out to some of the gardeners and see if there's anything that I could do to help them during this pandemic, and just aligning in those ways too. So it's a little bit different now and than it was when I first started my business. And it's all about just going to events or finding places that are in line with what you're doing. So we're in the gardening and tech space. So I just looked for events and places in those areas. But if you're in other types of things like swimming or jazz, I mean, you might want to go talk to people that own music shops or pools or rec centers, stuff like that. So just finding businesses that are similar or like yours and just asking for 15 minutes of their time. You're welcome. Any other questions? How do I get people to respond when I reach out? Very good question, because it's really easy to ignore an email or something. So sometimes people aren't going to respond, and that's okay. Other times I follow up with a phone call. So if it's a business, I'll call their business line that's on their website and reach out to them and follow up with a phone call saying, hey, I sent you over an email. Just wanted to see if you saw that email and if you have a little bit of time for me. And many times people will say, oh, I just didn't recognize your name. I thought it was spam. Or they might say, it's not for me. Sorry, I should have just responded no. And that's okay too. But if you really want to talk to somebody, you have to follow up. A lot of times people will send one email, and even to me, they'll send me one email and I'll think about responding to it, and then I'll forget about it. And then it'll get buried down in my emails that I just didn't see it. And so to then either put it back into the top of their email box by sending another email, or giving them a phone call to give them a little poke, or even connecting with somebody on LinkedIn. That has been a really good way to connect on a more personal level, because you can see their photo, they can see your photo, they can put a face to your name. And then when you send them, you can send them connection requests with a little blurb to say, hey, I'd like to connect with you about your business and learn more. If they connect with you, you can then send them an email or a message saying, here's some dates and times I'd love to connect. So I found a lot of success on LinkedIn networking too. So just getting creative. Yeah, no problem. Okay, well, earlier this week, I actually talked to some interns at Baldwin Wallace, and they had a couple questions. One of them was, how did things change for you during the pandemic, and how did you run your business differently, and what kinds of delays did you experience? So since we have a couple more minutes, I'll share that. I think it's a topic that's on a lot of people's mind, especially for business owners and small business owners that are having to change the way they do business. It's a very difficult time, and for us, getting started during a pandemic was quite challenging. In January of this year, I quit my full-time job to focus on this full-time. And that was basically when the pandemic started happening in China, which we noticed right away supply chain issues. So when you're creating custom hardware, a lot of times you're prototyping online and then having those things made in small batches in China and mailed here for iteration and quickly changing things. So one of the first things I noticed during the pandemic was how the supply chain had been so far delayed, and how much we relied on getting electronic pieces in China. There really was no place here in the United States that we could get these chips and PCB boards made. So we had to just wait. And so one of our boards took almost 2 months to come back to us because of the delays in China. But also, once those pieces came to the United States, they had to sit in quarantine for 2 more weeks before they came to us. So those are things that when you're iterating, you're really just testing things out. So those pieces, we didn't even know if they were going to work or not. More than likely, we're going to have to improve upon them and order another one, a better one. But it took 2 months to get that first thing. And within 15 minutes, we knew we had to get something different and that there was like an issue by 1 millimeter. And we had to start all over again and order new. So we experienced a lot of delays early on. And it was a little bit discouraging to think, oh my gosh, did I quit my job at the right time? But even though the pandemic happened, we just had to be more strategic and focused on our time and realize that we can only do what we can do here. Like, I can only control what I do with my time. I can't control how long it takes things to come. I can't control this insane virus that's passing along throughout the world and causing all kinds of things to happen. And I can just focus on being positive, being thankful that all I've had to do is wait a little bit longer for my pieces. I mean, that's probably a very small issue when thinking of a global issue, but when you're in your business and you're trying to get things done and you can't get things done, it's very difficult. We initially thought our launch was going to be in March, and now we're looking at in September or fall. So having that longer time frame also, from a budget standpoint, threw us off a little bit financially, but it's just how you have to pivot and maneuver inside of a business. There are certain challenges that you can anticipate and other challenges that you cannot. And again, it just goes back to surrounding yourself with people that can keep you focused and keep you positive and help you when you feel stranded and help you when you feel like the world is imploding and you don't know what to do. Turn to your team, turn to your family, turn to your friends for that support, because none of us are in this alone and none of us should be doing anything alone. And I think that's about my time, unless there's more questions or comments about business or even, starting your own company or even moving from. I actually had one more really good question is, how did, oh, here you go. How did you keep your team motivated? Really good question. Especially because during this time, there's a lot of emotions happening. A lot of people are feeling isolated and depressed and sad, and it's difficult to stay motivated when there's so much negativity. So that's a really good question. And what I tried to do was give grace and space we're all allowed to feel bad. We all should feel the way you're feeling. I mean, if you feel bad, if you feel sad, feel it, and then give yourself some grace and space, and then move on. So I tried to be really responsive to the team and intuitively understand where everybody was at. And what I would do is just ask a lot of questions, just check in with the team. If there was a delay or I wasn't hearing from somebody, sending a private note, giving a text message, giving a call. We have a weekly team meeting, so we have a weekly check-in that we started doing during the pandemic to stay connected. So always keeping the lines of communication open and always keeping the understanding that it's okay if something doesn't happen the way we thought it was going to happen. Just tell me so that I know. And the team knows that it's really all about open communication and understanding that things happen and that sometimes you think you're going to do something, but you just don't feel like it. And that's okay too. Just have your day, feel like crap, and then move on the next day. And that's really, all we can do is just try to give each other the same grace you would give your best friend. Thank you. If there is any other last minute questions, I think we have a couple more minutes before we go into our networking session. I'd say that I much prefer an in-person networking event, but this was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that everybody made time on a Saturday to come and listen to all the speakers, and happy that you guys are here. Is this my first startup, and how did you make the decision to pursue this idea? This is my very first startup, my very first serious startup, I should say. I have I have a whole book of ideas that I've had over the years that I've wanted to pursue, or I've thought of, oh, it wouldn't, day to day, wouldn't it be cool if this had an umbrella on it, or wouldn't this be cool if it was waterproof? And I write it in my little book and let it sit and marinate. And this was the first idea that I had that I felt extremely passionate about and driven to make for myself. And as I started making it, I realized that it could be something awesome and amazing for the community and to transform in our region. So this was the very first startup that I focused on full time, and the very first thing that I just couldn't stop thinking about. And so that's how I knew I should follow this idea, is that I got so obsessed with learning about it. I got so obsessed with finding the answers to the problems and to finding the solution that I knew I couldn't give it up. I just could not stop thinking about it. I was waking up at 5 a.m. before work to work on it. I was staying up until wee hours of the night to work on it. So I just knew that I had to do this because I just couldn't let it go. I mean, there was months of me working full time and focusing on this, and that's how I knew. Once the time became too much in that I needed more time for my startup, I knew it was time to quit my full-time job. So this was the first one that I was serious about, not the first idea I've had, but definitely the one that I felt most passionate about.